Digipub Week is the online chapter of our Digipub World Convention, India's first event dedicated to online publishers held annually since 2017. Before we begin, we'd like to thank our presenting partner, MGID, and associate partner, and Beyond Media, for their support. Can we please have the AV? Thank you. Moving on to today's session, the topic is monetization, the next frontier. On the panel, we have Anushraf Gulati, Head Indirect Revenues at Times Internet, Gaurav Arora, Senior Vice President and Chief Revenue Officer at Jagran New Media, Hemant Jain, Senior Executive Vice President and Head of Digital Business, Lokmat Media, Pankaj Mehta, Chief Business Officer, Alchemy Group, and Pradeep Gairola, Vice President and Business Head Digital at The Hindu. The session will be moderated by Andre, Head of Publishers, NPID. Welcome, everyone. Before we dive into the session, I request the audience to please stay back after the panel discussion as we have an exclusive interview with Ms. Priyanka Gill, co-founder the Good Glam Group at 4:40 p.m. The interview was recorded last Wednesday. Once again, thank you everyone for joining. Over to you, Mr. Andre.
Yes. Thank you very much for this kind of introduction. Well, hello guys. Good to see all of you here. I'm really happy to meet such experienced experts in India publishing market and to get the valuable point of view on various monetization strategies and get overall digital trends overview that will happen during this year. Also, I'm really happy that we will open Digipub Week, and today we're going to discuss very important topics during our session. So what does 2022 hold for the publisher space in India? And the purpose of our topic is to determine what monetization strategies are working for web publishers and what are the new types of ad format that will take monetization to the next level. So I think that let's ask our industry experts about current digital trends. So if everyone ready, I think that we can start. Just some organization questions as well. So we will have 40 minutes during our session to cover all our questions, plus 10 minutes for answering questions from our online audiences. So the first question I would like to address to Anushraf from Times Internet. So as we know, Indian publishing market is a really dynamic industry, and you know that there are always new and emerging trends to keep up with. And in 2022, the new world circumstances dictate their rules. Digital publishers realize the need for better engagement with the audiences through new channels and creative ways to generate more revenue. So, Anushraf, I would like to hear your point of view. What, in your opinion, has the digital publishing market changed, and how have you adjusted your monetization strategies to meet these changes?
Thanks, Andre. Hi, everyone. So I think it's a good intro and a very pertinent layout as to what we have mentioned, Andre. And I would definitely say, yes, the market in India, publishing market has changed in India a lot in last 2 to 3 years. Not only triggered by the decision the government has made, but in last 2 3 years, the impact of COVID has also fueled a lot of changes. And that has also in a way impacted how users look at the content. With COVID lockdowns, I think we changed our patterns of consuming content and how we work. For example, for us, if you look at it in last 1.5 to 2 years, the total user engagement for us has gone up by 50% alone. I mean, it varies anywhere from 45% to in some of the properties it is as high as 60%. So on average, a 50% in improvement in the or change in the engagements with users in multiple touch points, be it app, be it mobile, be it website. So the way they are looking at content, so a lot more video content is being consumed. uh, the expectations of users for deep dive and engaging content has gone up. So, in fact, at times we have started refocusing on long form journalism. The content composition or the daily content production, there is a increasing percentage of long form articles which engage users with a lot of factoids and details. So that initial thing of stitching multiple articles together, most of the publishers do and stuff. I think we are seeing that this is uh, uh, a change to a long form format is very refreshing for the users. That is a big change that we have seen in terms of how the publishing market has changed.
Mhm.
From monetization perspective, I think we realize that the user's expectation is from in the form of how they value the content, how they're utilizing the time when they are at home, the time that breaking between. See, nowadays the work and non-work life is almost like overlapping, and people just want to make sure that whatever break they're taking, they really derive value out of it. And we therefore have started focusing on direct association with our readers. We want to reach out to them in more useful ways. And while focusing on revenues from an ad sales perspective, therefore our efforts on subscriptions have also gone up to make sure that we do a deep profiling and provide the right value to the users as to what they are looking for. So yeah, by and large, I think this is how we see the market changing and the patterns changing for our users.
Yeah, thank you, Anushraf, for really detailed explanations, and really that we can see that audience consumptions definitely changed, and the audience start looking for the new alternatives, especially during the COVID situation, right? So the next question I would like to address to Gaurav from Jagrana Media. According to latest research, the what we can see that pandemic situation jumped e-commerce, for example, forward by at least 5 years. And this shift was already ongoing, but now it has become a reality much sooner than any of us expected, right? So the publisher, what we can see, the publisher in India and in rest of the world start looking for new and creative ways to interact with their audience and choose the right ads to meet the audience needs and requirements and content. So Gaurav, what in your opinion, what shifts do you see in your audience's content consumption habits right now?
So a lot. I mean, the audience is a whole lot more evolved, right? I mean, like Anushraf said, COVID changed a lot of things, right? Including that because people had so much time on hand, they experimented with a lot of things, right? So clearly, there in terms of the way you would consume content and what content would you consume, it also opened a lot of frontiers, in terms of categories that people were consuming. So, I mean, with that changing, people were also aware of, how well is the content being presented. I mean, what is the UI UX? I mean, what is the whole experience when you go out and read that? And in between that, somewhere comes in the advertisement part, right? I mean, so people are very, very choosy about consuming content on cleaner websites, right? The ad formats have evolved a lot. Something that used to work 5 years back doesn't work anymore, right? At all fronts, users find it intrusive. Google algorithms do not support any moving pages. If there is a an ad unit that goes up and down while the page is being loaded and all of that, people don't enjoy it anymore. So now it is more about content, the ads which are built into the content, right? So the whole monetization spread between 3-4 big categories, right? So obviously display ads is one. There's subscription, which is another big bucket which is going to come up. Content syndication is something which is very important to a publisher now. And then there is a whole piece which is the brand content production piece that comes into place, right? So that is how I would put it. Video has evolved a lot, right? I mean, in terms of video monetization, there's a lot of stuff which is happening, both in terms of production and also in terms of advertising, that's happening. So for us, all of these parameters have moved in last 2-3 years, right? We've evolved from being a very generic advertiser to a publisher, to a more evolved one, where we also look at brand safety very, very closely. We also look at ad viewability very, very closely. Well, that's how we try and deliver ROI to the advertisers. And all of this is done keeping the PNL and the profitability in mind. It's a very fine balancing act, very tough one to achieve for a publisher, but it's a constant, evolving process for us. We're trying to be there.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Gaurav. Pradeep, would like to ask you as well. Do you see the same situation about content consumption habits? And if not, so what you can see in terms of the shifts in your audience content consumption habits, and maybe have the shifts affected your choice of ad formats?
See, as Gaurav rightly said, there's a lot of the business is evolving, and I think there's as far as audiences are concerned, they are continuously evolving, and we see a lot of consumption towards a podcast or a video. We saw a dramatically large increase in last 2 years, right? So podcast almost did not exist for us 2 years back when this COVID happened. And I'm reasonably sure that even if the COVID was not there yet, podcast was evolving world over, and it would have caught up in India also. Today, we have millions of people who really, listen to our podcast on a daily basis. And we are publishing on a weekly basis. We are publishing about 5 podcasts. So every day we have a podcast, and we plan to further increase the consumption. As far as videos are concerned, again, we saw, we are not a video publisher, and we feel that monetizing video is a large challenge, because if you produce a content only from a perspective of, say, advertising monetization, we find it very, very difficult to really justify the ROIs, right? So we are essentially a text-based company, a newspaper company, and so our capabilities on videos did not exist. But we are now trying to figure out, especially given that we are now also a subscription-first organization, so in in that game, the video fits in our strategy very well, right? We have seen a dramatic increase in the newsletter formats. So earlier we did not have, today we are producing about 20 newsletters every week in our organization, right? And this kind of numbers were just not thinkable 2 years back. So I think user today, earlier you could just send an email and say that, okay, click this link, come to my website. Now that kind of a thing is not working. So wherever the user is, you need to give a complete kind of an experience to it. So today our newsletters are not really pushing the user to come back to us, but we feel that the consumption should happen there itself. It's a fulfilling medium at the mailer itself, mailer level itself, right? So, and with this, see, a lot of things will have, have to really, evolve, right? So see, in our case, what happens is there are a lot of rich visual stories which we are playing around. We are trying to, see that we want to really see that we work with ad specialists who can help us in. So emailer is no longer, so you just can't put another display ad on an emailer and say that, okay, this is a great monetization. No, it is not going to work that way, right? Yeah. Similarly, a podcast will be more kind of a sponsorship kind of a model, which is going to work better for the podcasts and all. And all this, so the content is evolved much faster for us, but our monetization has to really has to now come in, because before you actually go for any monetization, you need a certain amount of critical mass. So in last 2 years, we have been able to build a critical mass. Now there are a few million subscribers to our newsletters. So today we can go to an advertiser and say that, okay, our newsletter can form a part of your strategy to reach out the wider audiences. Today our podcast can deliver a critical amount of numbers which advertiser is looking at. So in the last 2 years, we developed a lot of new formats. Of course, the text was always very strong for us. And we have to now work with the specialists who can help us monetize these properties which we have created in the last couple of years, right? So typically we feel that the reader choices will keep evolving, right? So in case of and somewhere we feel that we be a part of this change what is happening, and sometimes we also create a change. So for example, when you look at a short form content which is kind of a more trend, so like lot of 100 words articles are. But as Anushra was saying, we are also experimenting with the long form content. So typically today, there's a quantum jump in the number of articles which we publish, which are 2,000 to 4,000 words, right? And especially from a subscriber perspective, it is making a dramatically good sense. Now, in this kind of a art, like what kind of a advertising will be able to support this kind of a content, right? So there are, so I think, like we have spent last 2 years in building a large repository of new formats that, like built us critical mass for new products that we have developed. And now is the time when we will start working with on monetization of it. And each monetization strategy would have to really take into account that it should not really disrupt the reader experience, because somewhere we feel that, like the advertising has to, we feel that advertising is going to always be very, very critical to our business, and because we never feel that more than we can't foresee the more than, at least more than 5% of the people paying for the content. So 95% of the user is never going to pay for the content. And this user can only be monetized through some other sources like advertising or e-commerce and other formats, right? And this is where I think a lot of effort has to go in. We are building new products. We are building new audiences. We are building a size of these audiences. We are building a critical mass so that when we go to the advertisers, our partners are able to see a value in using these formats to really reach out to their customers. This is what we have been doing.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Pradeep. Completely agree with you that we definitely can see the audience consumption habits definitely changed. Yes, and our main goal is try to meet the and adapt to these changes. Also, I would like to return back to the previous question, and I would like to ask Hemant's opinion from Lokmat Media. So we just discussed that the publishing market definitely changed, right, and continue changing. So how you adjusted your monetization strategies to meet the changes in your company?
Yeah. So thank you for your question, Andre. I represent Lokmat Media, which is the largest read Marathi daily in the country. And very interestingly, we are one of the very few publishers in the country which operate out of a single state, which is Maharashtra, and an adjoining state, Goa. And in spite of us being present in a single state, we are among the top 5 read news dailies. I'm talking about print in the country. This brings us to a very interesting point of shift, which we have seen over the last 4 or 5 years in terms of how important the role of Indic language content has become in the lives of the users, as we have seen the shift from feature phone to smartphone, and as more and more people have got more affordable bandwidth now on the mobile, so we've become a mobile first economy. So there are primarily, I would say, for us, we have tried to leverage our presence in Maharashtra, and right from day one, when I joined them in 2016, we were absolutely clear that we want to build the largest community of Marathi-speaking audiences across various experiences. Now, when you look at any demographics of any state, I would say today, when you look at India as a country, 60% of the population is below the age group of 35. So we are largely talking to a very large bunch of millennials. And at the same time, you have people across various other age groups, and each of them today. And interestingly, Maharashtra as a state, the audience subscribe to 3 languages, which is English, Hindi, and Marathi, because both Hindi and Marathi, they belong to the Devanagari script. So the whole idea was basically to see how over a period of time, we could start building communities of people across various experiences or various content genres. So when I look at how one has evolved within the news space, and I would say for every language player in the country, there would be different trends in terms of how consumers come and consume content, in terms of which are the top performing categories, etc. So in Maharashtra, the 2 categories which really perform well are local politics and entertainment. Now, entertainment would cut across Bollywood, Marathi cinema, television, etc. But at the same time, today, the whole idea is to offer a very wholesome experience to your users. So while we built out lokmat.com, and over the last 4-5 years, we moved from a journey of 5 lakh unique users a month to now doing 23 million unique users, 1 million page views to 250 million page views. What I have observed that especially during COVID and post-COVID, all of us have experienced a significant jump in traffic. And there were a lot of critics who said that once the COVID goes away, you would see that there is a normalization in your traffic to pre-COVID era, which never happened, which clearly highlights that there has been a paradigm shift in the behavior, the manner in which content is consumed today. So that's point number one. Hence, it becomes very imperative for any news publisher today to have a very high focus on creating value in the content. Because when you look at the space we occupy today is a hyper competitive space. Now, when I talk about value of content, today, if you ask me personally, which is one of my most prized asset on any news publishing site, given the fact that 96% of my users are mobile first users, I would say that it is largely the article page. Are you guys facing some disturbance?
No, we are fine.
Okay. So it completely depends on how do you stitch in great value for the content, because the better the value stitched into the content, the more is the time spent on the content. The other element is about your ability to cross navigate or cross integrate pieces of content. So we moved very fast from being a web model to a video model. And we realized that we are not in a position to compete with the top television news channel in Marathi language. So we followed what is a standard BBC model or a Wired model across the world, which is saying, I'm not into the business of breaking news, but we are going to be best in class in terms of creating follow-up news. So in spite of a very lean structure and less volume of videos we produce every month, we are today the second largest news network in Marathi language space on Facebook. Now, these are some of the trends which have really, created a very different kind of disruption, which does not create, I would say, a comfort position for any legacy player. Point number three, I believe what is increasingly becoming critical is how do we focus on discovery of content, with so much of content around. And, we are today not living in an era where people used to type the domain URL and land onto the news site. Today, the content is being discovered through WhatsApp, through social media, etc., etc. And I think so it is very, very critical for us to see how you could be present as a news media brand across various touch points to ensure that you have traffic either coming to your site through these referrals, or you have created an ecosystem on a third-party platform, which is also self-rewarding. Another very interesting point, I observe a lot of players today, they have a very cookie cutter approach towards content creation and publishing. So my first thumb rule is what works on YouTube necessarily does not work on Facebook. So typically when you look at publishers like Brute and NewJ, which are digital first players, many of them have not even invested in making a presence on YouTube while they're only present on Facebook. So I think so a lot has changed for news publishers today. And what I firmly believe is when I map this to the need of the advertiser is not coming around and saying, I need display, I need native. An advertiser is looking for you from a solutioning point of view. So what I have done over the last 12, 15 months, I have completely evolved my sales team from being into selling of advertising formats to moving more quasi agency approach. So wherein by they reach out to a brand and say, hey, what's your marketing pain point? What is it that you want to achieve out of this campaign? And then we come back and stitch a whole solution together. So whether it is on mainstream website with various opportunities of advertising, or it is through my video channels cutting across news, women lifestyle, entertainment, spirituality, devotion. These are various verticals which we have created to build specific communities. Or it is on Facebook in terms of, the total community of 10 million followers we built up. So I have seen a huge success there. because now you are approaching an advertiser more from a consulting firm outlook rather than trying to say, hey, can I sell you my inventory? So, so there is definitely a huge shift today and will continue to grow tomorrow, where we are slowly moving into an audience-based solution. And that is the reason why each of us are also investing in first-party data platforms to see how we can offer a more richer solution to our advertisers in days to come. So I think so it's exciting times. While we still have some of the top 3 digital companies who continue to enjoy 65 to 75% of all advertising revenues. But I definitely see a shift even in guys who have largely been doing performance advertising for a very long time on digital platforms, coming back to news publishers like us saying that we have recognized that you guys deliver quality audience. There is a far larger credibility advertising on your platforms. And I believe if each of us have been building audiences in a very organic way through a right blend of content, technology, and marketing / distribution, then they start to see better ROIs on their campaign, surely because of the quality of audience and your ability to optimize the campaigns. So, so this is how, I feel that we are heading towards very interesting time where innovation and creative solutioning would play a very different role in helping our clients meet their objectives beyond the realms of what they do on some of the large third-party platforms or working with their own social media agencies, etc. Because in some cases, we have seen a shift where clients have moved away from the social media agency to directly working with us, saying we see more value in what you do, right from your ability to create content, to publish content and amplify content and deliver us better ROIs.
Yeah, thank you very much, Hemant, for a very detailed overview. And you touch a very important topic about how to sell inventory effectively. And what we can see right now that ad technologies in general enables publishers to sell the inventory via different methods like direct deal, real-time bidding, private auction, or even sell inventory through the content recommendation platform and the many more others ways. So as we can see right now, the list of options increases, yes, and publishers find themselves wondering which method is the most profitable for selling their ad inventory in general. So I have a question to Pankil from Alchemy Group. So on your opinion, have you increased the number of direct deals with the publishers? And if not, has your approach to choosing ad tech partners changed?
Sure. Hi, everyone. So I think our perspective here that the direct deals have definitely gone up for all publishers. The kind of publishers we work with and the way we see them selling their inventory, the landscape has definitely shifted over the last few years. But as Hemant said, the volume has also gone up drastically. The landscape has shifted from both perspectives. So if a publisher was seeing X million page views maybe 3 years back before the pandemic to what they're seeing right now is multifold. And yes, the direct deals also have grown from that perspective, but I still feel that the overall pie still remains similar for many publishers. Many publishers still struggle where they would see that if before pandemic, if someone was selling, let's say 30%, 20% of the inventory through direct deals and maybe another 30, 40% through direct ROs, that split still is remaining the same. However, the user base, the page view base, the ad requests, the overall inventory that the publisher has is definitely much larger. So we're definitely seeing a massive rise of programmatic. However, we see this primarily working for the larger publishers, more in their favor at this point. But not to say that the smaller ones are also catching up. So we do have a network of mid-sized publishers as well. And probably 3 years back, they would not have a single impression directly sold, whether it's through their sales team or whether it's through a PG, PD, etc. But now we see that they probably get a couple of deals every month. And I think that's the start, and that's the where you'll see a shift in terms of how how the publisher is selling the inventory. Coming to the challenge of choosing the right ad tech partner, I think again, massive shift. If we and I'm sure everyone will resonate with this here, that if we go back 5 years, I would see most publishers working with 20, 30 partners on their stack. They would literally onboard any and every partner with the hope that they would make an incremental revenue. But that entire thought process has completely changed. Most publishers that we see are now working with a bunch of partners, and most of the stuff is moving through strategic stuff. So, if they have a partner providing them programmatic solutions, it's either divided across 1 or 2 partners. If they have content recommendations, it's primarily either 1 or 2 partners again. So again, we've seen that publishers are more choosy with which partners they want to choose for their stack, and limiting the partner and ensuring that they get more strategic value from each of their partners is what I'm seeing as a massive shift in the industry.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Pankil, for the detailed feedback about direct deal with advertisers. And I would like to also address this question to Gaurav from Jaguar Media, because it's very crucial for publishers to have the deals with the direct players, right? So Gaurav, from your side, have you increased the number of direct deals with advertisers across Jaguar Media?
Absolutely. Last 2-3 years have been really progressive in terms of adding the number of clients, right? And also the volume uptake has gone up much higher. Okay, but just to clarify, all of the success is not attributed just to the display advertising, right? So there's more, like I said, to advertising now, right? Branded content in between plays a huge role. We were not very video savvy a few years back. Now we have a decent inventory that we try and go out and sell now. So all of that, plus publishers' evolution into doing a much more targeted campaign, targeting first-party data, looking at contextual targeting. All of these, as you evolve as a publisher, you build those capabilities, you build those ad tech. There is an addition that happens, right? Plus the evolution of programmatic guaranteed has also helped us doing that, right? So no question on that. The client base has increased manifold for direct sales. The ticket size has also gone up, which is nice. But then you have to also take into the fact the rates have been a challenge. I think India is the only country where the rates have gone southwards, looking at for the last 5-10 years. But yeah, keeping that aside, there has been a very, very decent growth, which I believe all publishers have got. More so, I think between top 5, top 10 publishers, they would have definitely experienced the same what we've experienced.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Gaurav.
I'd like to add on Gaurav's point, on ad rates. So I got into the industry in 1997. Both me and Gaurav worked for the same organization. And believe me, 97 till now, there is no change in the rates.
Sir, it has gone down.
It has gone down, right?
Selling at premium now.
Yeah. And we were studying the international publishers, and we realized that in US, the average publisher is, especially the publisher like ours, us, is able to get anything between $50 to $75 CPM for their ad rates. Our international inventory sells around $3. Okay, and what is very, very surprising is that about 100 million people come from the international markets to Indian publisher every month, which is equal to what NYT's monthly user base is, right? And if Indian publishers can just come together and sell this inventory as a single of this, so NYT did about $500 million of revenue in 21, okay, which is in Indian currency is about 4,000 odd crore rupees, right? Yeah. So if the Indian publishers just come together and sell their international inventory as a one consolidated lot, the amount of value that they can unlock. Similarly, while Big Mac index may not be the best indicator, but if we benchmark a US burger price with Indian, so our ad rates by now should have been at least $25 in India, and they are hovering around $1, $1.25 kind of a price point. So ad rates have been a real large challenge, and I think publishers need to really figure out what are we doing wrong in comparison to our international publishers, that we get such a low value for the inventory, while our international publishers have been able to unlock such a high value for it. There's something which flummoxes me a lot, and we will definitely reach out to publishers to figure out how do we find some solution, and we'll also look for ad partners who can help us.
So Pradeep, I think so you've hit on a very valid point, because I recently was in Pune to meet a couple of large builder founders. I think so I realized that the perception there, which everyone is carrying, is digital is cheap. And when you look at the outcomes and the speed at which you are able to connect with audiences, I think so what digital can deliver today from a campaign perspective, outcome perspective, we have eventually become a kind of a third channel for sales, which talks about the ability of the platform or the ability of the medium. But as you very rightly said, if you look at the dollar value at which we are selling today, I think so if it doesn't get corrected, digital will continue to bleed all through.
Guys, we have 5 minutes left. However, we also need to cover several important topics during our meeting. So yeah, you mentioned about the data, you mentioned about how to sell inventory properly, and you also mentioned about the programmatic channels. However, in 2023, Google plans to stop supporting third-party cookies in its Chrome browser, right? Effectively making probably one of the most significant changes in the history of digital marketing. All right, so in the preparation for the cookieless future, publishers have made strong improvements to their business model. Some are focusing on higher quality content, while others are collecting first-party data from users who log into their website. So I have a question to you, Anushraf. In the light of the cookieless future approaching, have you started looking deeper into your audiences?
Yeah, correct. So see, we have been probably one of the few publishers in the very beginning who had started putting up their first party data lakes in place. And we have a massive base of about like maybe 500, 600. I don't know what the current number is, 600 million users in our data lake. But what we realized is that while we are able to use our own data internally through our own direct deals, through our own ad stack, be it through Columbia, be it through our CAM setup and all, we really need to, in light of preparing for, being ready for S223 sort of situation where third-party cookies are being retired, we need to understand how good is our data, right? I mean, I can say I'm king of the jungle, but I really need to know that how many other kings are there or whether I am really good at what I'm saying. So what we have done is we have re-orchestrated all our algorithms. We have worked very deeply in terms of mapping the user's behavior, and we are using the data to better qualify and attribute the segments, and also do an acid test internally while discovering or deploying our own audience sets to figure out the propensity of subscription for the current user base. That way, we are generating models of identifying the user behavior and testing whether our algorithms of deeply understanding user behavior and putting them in certain cohort is correct or not. I think this is something that we have been really working for, and we have seen quite a bit of positive impact on those, and we are very enthused. And now we are looking at deploying our audience cohorts not only through a lot of strategic partnerships through data vault implementations. We are looking at how do we do pricing for a given cohort in an open market, in a biddable media, not only just direct sold or PG, PD sort of stuff. Not really PG, but at least in PD and PMPs. So there has been a deep focus from our side, and we still believe that after having done so much, we need to cover a lot of ground in this direction. And I think where teams have been working quite aggressively for the last 4 or 5 months, and we still continue to do that. Our roadmaps are laid out for the next 3 or 4 months still at a core level. We are also, as I said, exploring those possibilities, looking for any guidance inputs from the team here as to how do we better, utilize the first party data apart from the traditional means that we all understand in a more privacy safe fashion to generate better ROI for our advertisers. And any case studies, any inputs in those directions are much appreciated. While we are working with few of our agency partners and best friends across the industry, I think more inputs are always valuable for everybody.
Thanks, Anushraf. We have 1 minute left. However, I would like to ask the last question to everyone. Apart from the cookieless features, the industry have a trend to adapt into the new global challenges that happened over the last several years, such as pandemic situation, impact of core web vitals, audience outflow in social media, and their changes in consumer behavior in general, right? However, technologies and trends in publishing world also keep constantly developing and moving ahead. So I have a very straightforward question. Apart from preparing for the cookieless future, what else should digital publishers need to keep in mind to succeed in 2022?
I'll take it. So in our
Sure.
opinion, yeah. So in our opinion, publishers need to experiment a lot and try to develop multiple sources of revenue. So today we have subscription, display ads, content and events, and as some large blocks of revenue. Out of these, actually subscription events have just developed in last 2-3 years. In last 2-3 years, there's a large traction we are seeing in some of the new categories. And we have built emailers, we have built podcasts, there's the archives, as somebody in the panel was saying, is a large opportunity, there's an e-commerce, brand. So we plan to experiment with a lot of these things, especially, like how do we get a better value for our archives, brand licensing, NFT, something which we want to experiment. So the core idea which we will say is that try a lot of things. And then once you see some traction, back a few, but other than trying experimenting, I don't think there are too many options. We need to really reduce our dependence on we need to create a lot more sources of revenue for really to build a sustainable business.
So I would say one thing that we have been missing as publishers, at least, I mean, I would say that for myself, is that if you look at Indian TV segment, right, 40%, 40 to 50% of Indian market in 40 inches and below is now a smart TV market. We have about 75 crore households in India who are still going to buy their first TV, and in the 83% times the purchase is what I get from industry data is a smart TV these days. I mean, smart TVs are available at 15,000, 20,000 bucks these days. So I think connected TV as a market, as an ad format, is something that we should definitely look at. As a publisher, I think it does away with a lot of dependency on cookie-based stuff. There are attribution issues, but I think it's a very greenfield ecosystem for a video first or a video heavy publisher.
Thank you, guys. It was really productive session. Thanks for all your insights. Thanks for all your answering. I'm sure that our audience received a lot of information about the digital trend and about the best monetization strategies that you choose for your audience and for your companies itself. However, also what I can see that we have some questions from our online audiences. So Benita, should I ask these questions or you will follow that?
We're running short of time now, so I don't think we have time for questions.
But you can post us the question. We will try to reply to best of our ability.
Sure. Let me do that.
Thank you, Anish, for such an insightful session.